Last week in our Sunday special report, we met doctors who are making old-fashioned house calls. It's a relatively new service in Taiwan, and doctors who see patients right in their homes are a very small group, despite the high demand for them. Although the government wants more physicians to make house calls, the policies in place are set to discourage clinics from specializing in this type of care. Today, in part 2 of our report, doctors weigh in on why it's so hard to offer house calls in Taiwan's healthcare system. They also share insights on what can be done to support the practice.
Today, Dulan Clinic physicians Shang-ju and Wei-ling are practicing the use of an electronic nasopharyngoscope. An equipment supplier stands nearby, explaining how to use the scope and sanitize it.
这个其实用右手比较好，因为就用右手拿，因为这边有一个光源挡住。
To provide their patients with better medical care and to hone their skills, good doctors are always investing in themselves. Their hard work and sacrifices don't often get noticed. Currently, Dulan Clinic offers 3 options for patients: in-clinic service, a mobile clinic, and in-home service. This scope is lightweight, making it suitable for use by the 2 doctors during house calls. Such medical equipment costs money, and few clinics are willing to make the investment. From a doctor's perspective, house calls are a loss-making business. The main reason comes down to the way the national health insurance system works. For example, a doctor making a house call can collect just over 1,500 NT from health insurance, but the doctors and nurses who accompany that doctor will receive no visitation fees from the system. On an average house call, a doctor will spend between 30 minutes and an hour at the patient's home. If you add in the travel time, a doctor can see 3 patients at most in one morning, receiving total compensation of around 4,000 NT. But if the doctor sees patients in his clinic, he can see 40 patients in one morning and receive more than 10,000 NT. Given the hard work and the low compensation, it's no surprise that doctors who try house calls often decide to quit.
为什么我们想要把它停掉呢？因为我们要出去的时候，一定至少有3个人。
Why do we want to stop doing it? Because when we head out, there are 3 of us: a doctor, a nurse, and another person who drives. After a month, we have worn ourselves out, but we were only able to make 70 house calls and can only apply for less than 100,000 NT from the health insurance system.
Whether it is a simple consultation or whether the visit involves great effort and a pile of equipment, the fee for every house call is fixed at 1,553 NT. Even if the patient is receiving hospital at-home care, the fee per visit remains the same.
那有的诊所呢，他愿意去承接医院出来。
There are some clinics that are willing to take on discharged hospital patients with serious conditions. As the burden on hospitals grow, these types of clinics can really help create infirmaries out of homes. These clinics need lots of advanced equipment, apparatuses, and other things. The compensation they get now is probably only 20% of their costs.
Clinics are also not compensated for additional examinations and testing.
我们常常遇到非癌症的。
We often work with cancer-free patients who suffer from heart failure. We need to evaluate their heart functionality. We need to run blood tests to help the patient determine the level of functionality of their heart, to get the numbers on their organ failure. This type of analysis is not covered by the health insurance system.
基层门诊相关的收入。
Our revenue from basic Western medicine house calls in April was about 206,000 NT. Last month, there were no outpatient visits, and we earned a total of around 180,000 NT.
The numbers Zhang Kaiping is referring to is the monthly fees his clinic receives from national health insurance. After a year of operations, this is the first time he has reported the clinic's finances.
我们的话，大致1个月跟健保申请的额度。
Roughly speaking, the total amount we can apply for is between 230,000 NT and 250,000 NT. We need to do an average, very consistent 6 to 7 visits daily in order to be able to apply for that much. Currently, we need to pay the doctors, 1.5 administrative partners, and 2 nurses.
Amid policy disincentives and a range of limitations, more than half of registered home care clinics exist only in name.
我们目前登记的这个居家医疗的诊所
There are currently around 2,700 clinics registered with us as home care providers. Currently, around 1,300 of those clinics are actually doing house calls. This gap may be due to scheduling issues. The house call service could happen to conflict with the needs of patients attending clinics, so when providing medical care, they have to make a choice.
Given that clinics rely on NHI reimbursement for outpatient visits, house call doctors are few and far between. Those who offer them tend to do so outside of regular business hours, as a side gig. However, Dr. Zhang decided to focus on house calls, forgoing office hours altogether.
当初其实也经过了一番取舍。
In the beginning, I had a choice to make. I saw that under the current medical system, there were patients with very unstable conditions and nobody at home to take care for them. For example, there were terminally ill patients. There were patients who needed hospital-at-home care. We realized that if we wanted to help those people, we had to be tremendously flexible.
大部分想要参与的医师
Most doctors who want to participate in the house call program do so because they've tasted the fruit of their labor. That fruit is not money. Rather, it is the feeling after having made a house call. It is a sense of accomplishment far greater than that which they get from sitting in a hospital clinic. It reminds them of why they became a physician in the first place.
For in-home care to thrive, Taiwan needs a health insurance system that incentivizes its service providers. Besides that, there must be closer coordination among the different specialists who care for housebound patients.
豆皮哈，有没有豆皮？
这个
哦，放平上哦哈。
这样你都吞比较好嘛，练比较好。
像刚刚阿公现在他基本上只要转头，大概各2下他就吞了。
Mr. Lee, 93, has Parkinson's disease. His 91-year-old wife has suffered numerous strokes. Currently, the elderly couple is being cared for by Dr. Zhang, physiotherapist Guo Wenyu, and nurse Cai Yunjie.
复健老师会到家里来。
The physiatrist will visit our home and will teach us how they can exercise. She comes every week. Nurse Tsai comes once per month to change the nasogastric tube. Dr. Zhang and those with him come to check up on my parents' conditions.
Like Mr. Lee and his wife, most patients who need house calls are the exact same people who need long-term care.
那我们希望是说，透过专业人员。
We hope that through working with professionals, patients can recover some of their ability to perform everyday tasks. For example, if I get sick or suffer a stroke, I can use assistive devices or make adjustments to my living environment so that I can cook for myself and shower on my own.
Long-term care specialists and medical doctors and nurses hail from different parts of the healthcare's organizational structure. They cross paths when caring for the same patient.
我的想法是，有需要我们转介长照营养师来做一个营养的咨询。
可以啊。
对，因为我觉得这样。我觉得蛮好的建议啊。
To provide the best possible care for a housebound patient, long-term care specialists and standard medical professionals must work together closely. Since the government's Long-Term Care 2.0 program went live in 2017, many more services have been offered to patients. As a result, there's a growing need for interaction between different medical professionals.
专业人员可能包括哪些？例如说，像是职能治疗师。
Professionals in the field include occupational therapists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, nutritionists, psychologists, and others. So the care could involve occupational therapy clinics, physiotherapy clinics, home care clinics, and other centres.
But a common problem faced is that every type of medical specialist does things differently, without horizontal communication. As a result, looking after the same patient is an arduous exercise in collaboration.
要跟你沟通一个个案。
Despite having a limited income, Dulan Clinic has hired a long-term care specialist to join their team. The specialist works with Dulan's nurses to communicate with other long-term care providers in the hope of improving integration.
因为我们的照顾的长辈
Since we work with the elderly, there are many patients who have difficulty swallowing or that require training from a speech therapist. There are many who are undernourished, anemic, or who have insufficient protein intake. They require a nutritionist to help them make adjustments to the diet.
只有一家诊所做在宅疗做得很好，并不会让这个区域的整体的发展变得更好。
Having one clinic that does in-home care very well won't help this field develop. This is related to the field as a whole. These people can work together. For example, home care clinics, and long-term daily care organizations, as well as hospitals. These people could form a network.
早安，阿弟。Selamat pagi。阿婆早安。奶奶，又见面了。
哦，阿弟的狗仔咧，阿奶无走出来。
At present, the national healthcare system is not conducive to the development of in-home care, and specialists have to take it upon themselves to establish communication links with each other. Even so, there are house call doctors who put their aging patients first. They're willing to cross the high hurdles to provide health care in their patients' homes.
其实我们在做的事情是
Actually, what we are doing is affecting a monumental change. So what we are doing is making history. We are undertaking the work of creating a new model for long-term care.
如果我们都相信，到最后失能是不可以避免的。
We believe that loss of body functionality is inevitable and that eventually we all leave this world. But we can make a decision. We can decide to help people at this stage of life, help them have a better quality life. We hope to help them to return to the state of living, to be with people they like, the people they love, and to be in the space they are familiar with until the very last moment.
Home care is a solution for limited mobility, and it can improve a patient's later years. Rather than spending one's final moments in a strange hospital room, it becomes possible to remain in the comfort of the home, to stay with loved ones until the very end.